Well, thanks everyone for taking some time with us. We don't want to take a full hour. We don't even want to take a half an hour. We'll try to keep this short as possible. What we want to do is talk about server uplift or application migration or whatever we want to use the terminology, talking about taking applications off of old Microsoft OSs, be it Windows 2000, 2003, 2008, and even 2012 these days, and taking those applications and moving them to a new compliant and supported operating system, be it 2016 or 19. But what I want to take specific time to talk about is where we're moving those to. And we've had a lot of discussions with clients, with partners of late, and talking about moving those to cloud environments, putting up new data centers or consolidated from different data rooms around the globe into a centralized data center now, and the process to do that. We've had lengthy discussions along the way. We've had webinars in the past talking about the best practices, using our tool set, using our methodology, using our services, or retraining your staff on our methodology and our software. So I don't want to go too far into that. I want to talk about is the best practices for those long distance sort of moves and how our technology can be enabled there, and what to look out for. We've had a lot of success moving applications off of these legacy servers to the new compliant 2016 and 2019 servers, but moving these up to AWS, moving these to Azure, to GCP, or a new VMware frame in the same environment, or in a new data center. Usually we're talking to clients, and clients are trying to do a two-step methodology here, where they will take the application server the way it is, package it up in whatever VMware format or disk compression, moving it to the new data facility or to the cloud, be it Azure, AWS, promote that live in the new environment, test it. So you have that 2008 image or 2012 image running in Azure, AWS, or in your new frame. Make sure it works, put it in production, and then spin up a new project to do another migration in the same environment to go from that legacy OS to a new OS. And that's what we want to talk about here, is using our technology to do that in one step. Our technology has been used around different partners and different customers to do that, to take the existing 2008, take the applications off of that 2008, and in one step, put that on a newly provisioned server on AWS, Azure, or new data frame in a new data center. So really to do that in one step and look at the efficiencies there, instead of moving it and then doing a second move where you're going to have to look at recreating another image, more disk space, more network bandwidth, more internal processes, more internal resources, and a lengthy time to get that done. So Scott's going to take us through a demo of our technology. For some, it might be a refresher. For some, it might be net new, but we're going to show you the steps that we do in doing a migration. So bear in mind, this migration is going to be a small application. Scott's going to move from an old 2008 server to a 2016 or 19, I'm not sure which. And just keep in mind that this is going to be from one data center or one facility to another. It could be to the cloud, it could be to AWS, it could be to GCP, it could be to Azure. And we're going to show you the steps how to do that in one step in the process here, and not two. So Scott, we're going to let you take it over with the demo, and then we'll come back.
With a quick tour of our 2008 source server, we can see that IAS has been enabled, and we have a simple WordPress page running. The web page has had a few configuration changes and has a couple of entries. Now we can switch to our destination server. As we can see, this server is Windows 2019 and only has the VirtaMove software installed at this point. Our first step is to launch the VirtaMove admin console view into VirtaMove's one-to-one vmigrate solution. Once the console opens, we will create an empty VirtaMove container. This proprietary VirtaMove container will serve as the holding location on the destination server for the course of the application migration. Now that the VirtaMove container is created, we will need to create our secure source agent link to the source server. In this instance, we are using the source server hostname. Clicking the Test Connection button confirms we have connected successfully to the source server. Our next step is performing a quick audit of the two servers to ensure a base level of compatibility. This audit confirms drive space requirements, OS rights access, and a number of other items. Once the audit passes, we can now determine which applications are present on the source server and begin our application selection process. As we can see, there are several different applications installed on the source server. VirtaMove is different from other migration approaches because we can be very selective about which applications need to be migrated to our destination server. There's no need to bring non-business critical applications to the new destination server. We can focus on just the needs of the business. In this instance, we will select Web Server IAS, MySQL, and MySQL Connector, as those are the only components that our WordPress web page application requires. Once these applications are selected, the VirtaMove software automatically selects subcomponents that the application requires and starts to build out an application migration template. Moving through the various tabs, we can see the components that the VirtaMove software has selected for us. Now we can initiate the pre-population copy process. Our secure agent link will begin copying the folders, files, services, registry information, and other application components identified as part of the application template. This is a copy-only process. Nothing is changed, deleted, destroyed, or compromised on the source server during this copy-out process. During the pre-population process, VirtaMove also enables the IAS roles and features and synchronizes them to match the source server. This process can be quite lengthy depending on the size of the application, its data, as well as the available bandwidth. Now that the initial copy process has completed, we can begin the testing and verification process for the WordPress site. Our next step is to initiate VirtaMove's dock process. This step gracefully inserts key application components such as registry and services into the underlying OS on a temporary basis. This allows the application to interact with the new underlying operating system. Remember, the VirtaMove container does not contain any OS components, either from the source OS or the destination OS. Any operating system calls are intercepted by VirtaMove and redirected to the new OS on this 2019 server. Once the dock process completes, we have the ability to test out all functionality of the application. Our first step is to start any services associated with the application. In this case, we will start the required IAS services and the MySQL service. Now that those services have started successfully, we can launch the website to confirm it is operating as expected. We can even bring in application users to fully vet the application, testing all components and operations. Once the application has been thoroughly tested, we can move to the final stages of the migration. First, we must undock the VirtaMove container. This step removes visibility of the application from the underlying operating system and vice versa. The files are still present in the VirtaMove container, but in an offline state. Once the container is undocked, we can use the VirtaMove compress function on the container. This allows the VirtaMove container and the application within to be moved and used on other servers. This could be used to create an IIS farm or non-production environments such as test or dev if those did not previously exist or were too far adrift from the production server. This single cap file can be easily copied to additional servers once the compress function completes. Our last step is to dissolve the VirtaMove container. This pushes all the application components directly to the underlying OS, removing any dependency on the VirtaMove software. Similar to installing an application, but without the need to find the installation software or painstakingly match all the source server configurations, preferences, user and file permissions, etc. The VirtaMove migration approach easily recreates the as-is state of the application on the destination server so that the business can continue to use this application uninterrupted. Our last step is to reboot the destination server so that all application components are correctly inserted and services are started up in the correct ordered fashion. Once we have logged back into the destination server, we can verify the application is up and running by browsing to the website, now locally hosted on this new 2019 server. We can even review the Programs and Features menu to confirm our software is installed and uninstall the VirtaMove software at this point. The only thing left to do is plan for the cutover to production and decommission the old server.
Well, thank you, Scott. That's a quick run through on how our software does the migration. And bear in mind, again, I don't sound like a broken record, but we want this to be done from one data facility to another data facility for AWS, for Azure onboarding in one step, instead of moving the VMware image to the new data facility and then go through a process. This can all be done in the same project, same time frame, and have a landing spot with the new upgraded and compliant operating system. The diagram we have here is just a pictorial of the process that Scott went through of your old 2008 server sitting in your old data facility. He captures the application, the specific applications on that server, the specific pieces of software on that server you want to move. You don't want to move the old antivirus. You don't want to move the old backup and restore or any other server management tools. You want to use new ones on the new server. So capture that Oracle application, capture that SQL database, whatever it is, then bring that over in a secure and encrypted manner to the new 2016 or 2019 on AWS, on Azure, or in the new data facility. Do that testing, do that verification, and make sure that it does work, and then promote this into production, all in one step. A lot quicker, a lot less pain, and into production like I said, a lot quicker and cheaper for sure. That's really the process that we have. That's what we want to talk about, and we can go and answer some questions if there's any that are available at the moment.
So there were a couple of questions in the chat, Alex. Nothing in the Q&A section or a drop-out menu. We did answer them in the chat, but we can review them here real quick for the rest of the attendees. So there was a question about SQL databases that may reside on a different server. And this is part of our overall application approach where we can be very targeted, but the application itself still has access to any other components out there on additional servers. So with the VirtaMove approach, we're only transferring, copying, migrating, whichever term we want to use, from the targeted source server, any application components or data that resides on that server, right? So if there's multi-tier applications, et cetera, or even just data that resides on a pure data server, that will not be touched. We don't move that. We want to keep it where it is. It's living there fine. And then when the application is moved to the destination server and residing within the context of our VirtaMove container, it can still reach out to those additional servers. Again, whether it's a multi-tier or just a pure data server, to be able to access that, and we can go through verification and make sure that connection works, etc. And then there was another question regarding IIS websites and using different IP addresses and such, and none of that really changes, right? So we bring that over with all of the existing configurations, and you can reach into the web pools and the various configurations of IIS on the new destination server within the context of the VirtaMove container and play with any settings that you need to. So if you wanted to use different IP addresses, or you wanted to extract and delete certain web pools, you can do all of that. You have a full interaction to IIS within the IIS manager from within the context of the VirtaMove container to do what you want to do at that point in time for testing, etc. I don't see anything else right now, and nothing coming off the top of my head. Anything else that you wanted to cover, Alex?
No, that's the main message that I want to do. I want to talk about doing this in one swoop, and not spin up separate projects. We're working with a lot of customers that are bringing us in after they've migrated the initial 2008 servers to the new data facility or cloud, and then they're looking at us to help them with our software, our methodology, and our services to then do that migration. We're trying to save that step, and let's talk about and let's look at doing it all in one step. And that's the main message, the main theme, and that's what I hope we got across today. If there's any other questions, we will absolutely talk to those.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in here, but you know, I'm always one of those people that thinks of a question after the webinar ends, and I'm sure we can answer those, and those can be fielded through sales@virtamove.com. Other than that, I don't think we have anything else, right?
I don't think so. I think you're right.
So I just wanted to extend thanks to everyone that did attend. And again, if there was any questions or any sales inquiries, they can be cycled through sales@virtamove.com. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, so there's one more question there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So there's actually no impact to that source server at any time. That's the question here. So the question is there any impact to the source server at any point in time? And more specifically, once we go through the dissolve step of the VirtaMove container during at the cutover time, and to which I would say that there's actually no impact to that source server at any point in time. Only when you are in that cutover and you decide to take that source server out of production and move it into an offline state. That's the only time where there's any impact there. We don't change, delete, destroy anything on that source server. It stays as is and can be there until somebody says, hey, we haven't used that in a month or a year, or whatever it happens to be, and it can be completely decommissioned at that point. Okay. So a quick question here just about how long it takes to do the unbundle, and I assume you mean the compress process. And that is, again, another one of those nice variables, unfortunately. It really depends on how large that application is. Certainly understandable that an application that's a couple hundred meg versus one that's you know, a terabyte or better is going to take longer to go through that dissolve process. So there's some variables there. Give it another couple of moments and see if there's any other questions that kind of slide in here. But I'm starting to see some folks leaving the webinar as well.
Okay, Scott, I think we could wrap this up, and we can field any other questions via sales or other contacts.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.